Tamworth. Was it an accident? She trusted him with her life, and he left her face down in a pond. What happened to Keeley Bunker the night she was supposed to come home safely? How does someone go from childhood friend to prime suspect in a murder investigation? Why did his story change so many times? Was it a tragic accident, as he claimed, or was that just the start of a much darker truth? A night out, a trusted friend, a walk home that never ended. Keeley Bunker was just 20 years old, full of life, and surrounded by people who cared about her. So how did it all go so wrong? The trusted friend's story shifted repeatedly, raising serious doubts about his claim of a tragic accident. What initially appeared to be a disappearance soon revealed itself as something far more sinister, a profound betrayal by someone who presented himself as a protector. This isn't just another crime story. This is about betrayal, manipulation, and justice that almost came too late. So if you're looking for the real story and want the facts, the twists, the unfiltered truth, you're in the right place. Because what happened to Keeley Bunker should never have happened, and once you hear it, you'll never forget it. Let's get into it. What happens when the person you trust most turns into your worst nightmare? Keeley Bunker believes she was in safe hands. After all, Wesley Street had been in her life since childhood. She trusted him enough to walk her home alone in the early morning after a fun night out. But by the next day, Keeley was gone, and her story took a tragic, irreversible turn. Keeley, born on September 7, 1999, was just 20 years old. She had dreams, drive, and a heart that everyone around her felt. Her family saw her as radiant, full of love, always putting others first. She had just finished her degree and was preparing for an interview to become a teaching assistant, an incredibly exciting opportunity. Days earlier, she had tweeted about her plans to see the rapper H in concert, joking that maybe he'd spot her in the crowd and they'd fall in love. On September 18, 2019, Keeley attended that concert with her best friend Monique Riggin. They met up with Wesley at New Street Station in Birmingham. After the show, they headed to a nightclub and stayed out until about 2:40 a.m. A taxi dropped them off in Tamworth, close to Keeley's house. Monique, worried about her walking home in the dark, asked her to stay the night, but Keeley reassured her, saying, "I've got Wes, he'll walk me back. It'll be fine." Those words were the last Monique ever heard from her. The next day, Keeley didn't show up for her interview. Friends and family couldn't reach her, and panic quickly set in. By 5:30 p.m., her father reported her missing to the police. It didn't take long to figure out that Wesley Street was the last person to see her. When questioned, Wesley told officers he walked Keeley part of the way home, then left her at a phone box near his house so she could walk alone. He even took the police along the route they had walked. Calm, helpful, and cooperative, at least on the surface. The officers thanked him and let him go. But that night at 9 p.m., everything changed. Before we continue, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It will help more people hear stories that matter, stories people are too scared to talk about. Keeley's body was found in a nearby pond, partially hidden beneath branches and leaves. She had been strangled. The search was over, but the horror had only just begun. Keeley Bunker's body was found by someone who loved her, her uncle, Jason Brown. He was part of the desperate search party that combed through Tamworth the day after she disappeared. Jason spotted something beneath the surface in a quiet, dark pond inside Wigington Park. It was her, submerged, lifeless, stripped of her clothes. Marks around her neck left no doubt. Keeley had been strangled. Wesley was arrested, and his story began to crumble. First, he said they parted ways. Then he claimed they had consensual sex and that she died by accident. But evidence told a different story, one he couldn't rewrite. GPS data from Wesley's phone showed his movements that night. CCTV footage tracked the group from Birmingham back to Tamworth. DNA analysis confirmed sexual activity, but not in the way he described. Keeley had injuries consistent with forced assault. His behavior after the crime, moving her body, hiding it, and lying repeatedly, spoke volumes. What's worse, as investigators dug deeper into his past, more disturbing truths surfaced. Other women came forward, revealing that Wesley had previously assaulted them too. Their testimonies painted a chilling pattern of control and manipulation, hidden behind a friendly face and a smile. Wesley had multiple chances to tell the truth. Instead, he changed his story repeatedly, hoping something would stick. But the evidence left no room for doubt. Keeley Bunker had trusted her friend. She believed he would protect her on her walk home. Instead, he became the reason she never made it back. Shock rippled through the community. The joyful, trusting girl who had simply wanted to get home safely after a night out had been brutally murdered. Sitting in the back of the police car, Wesley looked more nervous than before. His voice cracked. "You're taking my phone now? Now I feel like you're blaming me." Officers tried to keep him calm. "No one's blaming you, Wesley," they said. "We're just doing what we're told. We need to follow protocol. This is bigger than us." Wesley insisted he just wanted to help look for Keeley. He mentioned how he'd been told earlier that once he answered some questions, he could rejoin the search. But things had changed. The police now needed his phone. GPS, messages, search history, it was all relevant. Still, officers tried to reassure him. "We're not going to laugh at your photos. We're only looking for anything that helps us understand what happened that night." Wesley nodded, but his worry was clear. His tone shifted between defensive and confused, occasionally asking questions they couldn't answer. Officers remained polite but firm, following the timeline and recording each step. A timestamp was scribbled on a wall inside the car. 22:46, the moment everything started to unravel. As they prepared to transport him to the station, the officers explained what would happen next. He'd meet with a custody sergeant, get his legal rights, be offered a blanket and a hot drink, standard procedure. But nothing about that moment felt routine. Not to them, not to Wesley, and certainly not to the family still reeling from the truth of what had just been found in that pond. At the police station, Wesley Street sat under harsh lights, fidgeting as officers went through the formalities. Before anything else, they needed answers about his mental and physical state. Had he taken any drugs or alcohol in the past 24 hours? Yes. He admitted drinking around 11 p.m. the night before, roughly the time Keeley went missing. When asked if he intended to harm himself, Wesley couldn't say for sure. He was reserved, unsure, teetering between confusion and despair. Officers recorded his responses, offered reassurance, and guided him through a health check, asking about allergies, religious needs, and emotional states. "Sad," he finally said when asked how he was feeling. From there, the real investigation began. Wesley stuck to his original story. He'd walked Keeley to a phone box near his house and left her alive and well. But detectives already had growing doubts. The GPS data painted a very different picture when they examined his phone. Wesley had returned to the scene where Keeley's body was found, not once but 7 times that same day. It was suspicious behavior that no innocent person could easily explain. CCTV footage also contradicted his timeline. Cameras captured him and Keeley walking together much later than he claimed. It is not near the phone box, but closer to Tamworth Rugby Club. To make things worse, his bank card and jacket were found in the park, near the very spot where her body was discovered. Then came the post-mortem. Keeley had been sexually assaulted. DNA found on her matched Wesley's. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Wesley's version of events began to shift. In the early phase of the trial, he continued to deny everything. He said he'd been too drunk to remember the night clearly, and if he'd mixed up the details, it was only because of the alcohol. He insisted Keeley had been happy when he left her, but the facts kept piling up against him. Eventually, Wesley changed his story again. This time, he claimed Keeley's death had been an accident. According to his new account, they had engaged in consensual sex in the park. He said Keeley had been flirtatious on the walk home, teasing him, and things escalated physically between them. This confession didn't line up with what he had said earlier. At first, he'd told investigators that their relationship had always been platonic. They were childhood friends, he said. No romance, no history of attraction. So why was he now suggesting there had been a spark between them that night? To the court, it was obvious. He was tailoring his story to fit the evidence. First, he said they parted ways. Then the CCTV contradicted that. Next, he tried to deny any sexual contact until the DNA results proved otherwise. So he pivoted again, now saying the encounter was mutual. The shifting narratives revealed more than he realized. His lies weren't just failing, they were unraveling. During the trial, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Wesley wasn't just on trial for Keeley's murder. Other women came forward, women who said Wesley had assaulted them in the past. Their testimonies revealed a chilling truth. Keeley's death wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a larger pattern of predatory behavior. Wesley had a history of targeting women, manipulating situations, and then lying to cover his tracks. As the court proceedings continued, the prosecution laid out every detail. They walked the jury through Wesley's movements, step by step, from the nightclub in Birmingham to the early morning hours in Tamworth. They showed the messages Keeley had sent. They presented the forensic evidence. They highlighted his inconsistencies. Wesley had tried to outsmart the system, but each lie only dug the hole deeper. Even in court, his emotions swung wildly. One moment, he looked devastated. The next, detached, as if the gravity of what he had done hadn't fully hit him, or he refused to let it. Jurors watched closely. The courtroom listened silently as the prosecution painted a clear, painful timeline of Keeley's final hours. Her voice, preserved in texts and memories, starkly contrasted with Wesley's broken, crumbling story. Ultimately, it wasn't just the physical evidence that spoke volumes. It was his inability to tell the truth. His own words trapped him. And with every version he told, the real story came into sharper focus. One of betrayal, violence, and a young life stolen far too soon. Wesley's GPS data left no room for denial. The records placed him near the pond again and again on the same day Keeley vanished. When questioned, he finally gave his version of the story. He claimed Keeley's death was a tragic accident, something that happened in a moment of passion. After realizing what he had done, he said he panicked. He dragged her body to the pond and tried to hide it under a pile of branches. He kept going back to cover it better. But when investigators asked why he hadn't told anyone, lied to Keeley's family, and misled the police, Wesley said he was scared, ashamed, and too overwhelmed to face the consequences. He told them he didn't know how to explain it to his parents or even begin telling the police what happened. That version unraveled quickly in court. The prosecution laid out a timeline that didn't match Wesley's claims. On their walk home that day, he had convinced Keeley to stop near the rugby club, close to the park. He told her it was just for a smoke. But once they were out of sight, everything changed. He forced himself on her. When she resisted, he put her in a chokehold and didn't let go. The court heard expert testimony. Strangulation takes time. This wasn't an impulse or a flash of uncontrollable emotion. Keeley fought. She struggled for air. He kept going. When her body went still, he carried her to the water's edge, covered her with branches, and walked away. The physical evidence, GPS data, and expert opinion crushed any narrative of an accident. But what followed pushed the case into even darker territory. After media coverage of the trial went public, it triggered a wave of responses that prosecutors hadn't expected. Women started to come forward, each with their own story, naming Wesley. In the courtroom, Wesley continued to portray himself as a confused young man who had made a mistake. His father supported that image, telling the court that Wesley was autistic and struggled to process the seriousness of the legal proceedings. But the following stories exposed another side of him, one he had kept hidden for years. The first woman to speak out described an assault from 2015. She had been 16. 2 years later, another girl, just 15, was attacked. And just months before Keeley's murder, a 20-year-old woman became his third known victim. Investigators suspected there were more, but these three were the only ones willing to come forward and face him. Each of their testimonies painted a chilling pattern. One survivor said she had lived with the trauma in silence, believing she'd never recover. The weight of what happened to her had nearly broken her. Another admitted she had been too ashamed to speak out at the time. She blamed herself. She thought no one would believe her. But after hearing about Keeley, she couldn't stay silent. "If something makes you sick to your stomach," she said in court, "it's not okay. I should have told someone sooner." The courtroom, already shaken by what happened to Keeley, now had a fuller picture that stretched back years. One that suggested Keeley wasn't the first girl he hurt, and if no one had stopped him, she might not have been the last. Wesley's dark past began to unravel, revealing a disturbing pattern of behavior. Just months before his death, he had victimized another 20-year-old woman. Although investigations hinted at the possibility of more victims, only 3 courageous women came forward to share their harrowing experiences. We're taught to picture a certain kind of predator: dark alley, cold stare, stranger danger. But what about the boy with the soft voice, the wide smile, the popular one who walks you home because he says he'll keep you safe? That's who Wesley was. Detective Inspector Cheryl Hannon, the senior officer leading the case, didn't hesitate to name it. She called him manipulative, calculated, a boy who acted like a martyr, like the world had wronged him. She recalled how, even after Keeley was missing, Wesley kept pushing the lie that he had left her safely at the phone box. He told people he didn't understand why everyone was blaming him, but he knew exactly what he had done. He had left her in the woods. He had hidden her body. And whenever someone asked, "Where's Keeley?" he lied straightly. Hannon pointed out how he inserted himself into the investigation, checking in with her friends, comforting her family, pretending to care while knowing the truth the entire time. Keeley had trusted him. He was supposed to walk her home. Instead, he lured her into a trap, raped her, and killed her. Then he pretended nothing happened, watching as the people who loved her desperately searched. And when the evidence started stacking up, his story changed again and again. But the damage had already been done. During sentencing, the courtroom fell silent as the judge addressed him directly. 30 years, no parole. That was the cost for what he had taken. Keeley's life, future, and dreams of working with children are gone, all because of his need to dominate, to control, to destroy. Her family sat only a few feet away listening. Her mother, Debbie, later said no punishment would ever feel like justice. Keeley was her heart, a kind soul, a bright light who had just begun to find her place in the world. She had plans, a path, and now her family had to live with the ache of what would never be. They would never hear her laugh again, see her graduate, or watch her grow into the woman she was meant to become. Debbie spoke honestly about the rage, the heartbreak, and the unhealed wound Wesley had left in their lives. Forgiveness, she said, wasn't something she could offer. Not now, maybe not ever. Keeley's murder shook the entire town. It wasn't just what happened, it was who did it. Wesley had been her childhood friend, someone her family knew, someone who lived nearby, hung out at the same places, and had once been welcome in their home. And that's what made it all the more terrifying. Because when danger doesn't look like danger, when it comes with a familiar face and a soft voice, it's hard to see it coming. Keeley thought she was safe. That's what haunts the people she left behind. Detective Hannon later told reporters something that stuck with many. The person who was meant to protect her turned out to be her killer. It's a chilling reminder that predators don't always fit the mold. They aren't always strangers lurking in shadows. Sometimes they're the ones who offer to walk you home. Sometimes they're the ones you've known your whole life. Wesley knew exactly what he was doing when he took Keeley's trust and twisted it. He used it as cover, as camouflage. And in the following days, he used that same trust to cover his tracks. Keeley's story sparked conversations far beyond her hometown about safety, trust, and how we teach young people to look out for danger without telling them that sometimes it's dressed like a friend. At the end of the trial, Keeley's family held each other tightly. There were no words that could fix what had been broken, no sentence that could undo what was lost. But her name, Keeley, echoed in every corner of that courtroom, and it would continue to echo long after the gavel fell. As we wrap up this heartbreaking case, Keeley's story is a stark reminder that trust can sometimes be the most dangerous thing we give. No one ever expects harm from those they know, but Wesley's actions have shown us how easily that trust can be exploited. Keeley's life was cut short, but her story will continue to resonate, pushing us to stay vigilant and never take safety for granted. If you found this story as chilling and eye-opening as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever encountered a situation that made you question whom you can trust? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.